All right, everybody. I wanted to come to you with a Halloween deck, a scary Halloween deck. Rakdos Aristocrats. Skipping the white here. I think we're at a point where we have a good density of creatures in just black and red that we don't need white. And I thought, hey, this is a good opportunity to build something like that. Another reason I wanted to build this deck this week is this Innistrad Midnight Hunt Commander, I believe, deck. Card, Prowling Geistcatcher. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, exile it. If that creature was a token, put a 1/1 counter on Prowling Geistcatcher. So it is a trigger when your creatures die, so that you still get their die triggers. It's not a replacement effect. And it has a second ability. When Prowling Geistcatcher leaves the battlefield, return each card exiled with it to the battlefield under your control. I think this is a fantastic reason to play this deck. This card is really powerful. Getting all of your death triggers multiple times in one big combo turn is something that you can certainly do with this Prowling Geistcatcher now in your deck. There's other ways, obviously, you could loop it, but I think he adds a really good body to your deck with what you want to do. And another thing I did with this deck to make it even scarier is I am playing 0 points. Now, one reason I'm playing 0 points is I don't have a Mox Jet, I don't have a Mox Ruby, and I thought, well, I don't really want to put in any other points because I don't think they're adding enough, right? Probably the best one that I would play and do have is a Demonic Tutor, which I think is an attribute that the deck has that I can't say about every deck, right? Some decks need their points in order to really function or be at that competitive level. I think this deck is perfectly competitive at its 0 point structure, although I will be adding a list, if you do have those cards, of the points that I would play and the cards that I would change out. And I'm also trying something new where I'm going to make a budget version of the list because I think this is a really good deck to play as your entry point into Canadian Highlander. So to start, I think Aristocrats is a great deck if you are new to Highlander or have played Highlander for a long time. If you haven't tried it, I definitely think you should. And that's because you get so used to learning the game state, right? What's actually important in your deck and your opponent's deck. You have so many decision points along the way that you can really utilize, right? Like just even something as simple as, sacking in combat to get some death triggers. So our sack outlets are Falcon Wrathful Aristocrat, Immerston Predator, both ones you saw earlier. Goblin Bombardment, Woe Strider, which also comes with a 0/1 and can come back from your graveyard. So this guy really does the entire package. Viscera, Carrion Feeder, and kind of a sack outlet. I've put Skullclamp here because we can kill a lot of our guys off with the -1 for a card advantage engine, and then Grafted War Gear. If you equip this to some other creature, you will have to sacrifice the first one. So it is kind of a sack outlet, but also a good way to just pump through some damage. So I went with 6 hard sacrifice outlets and then 2 somewhat optional sacrifice outlets. With all those sacrifice outlets, what is the purpose behind them? We have 8 payoff cards that help us win the game, and really these are the pair of sacrifice outlets with payoffs is really what wins us the game. Mayhem Devil's the best. Whenever you sacrifice something, it deals 1 damage to any target. Now this can be lands. This is whenever your opponent is sacrificing things. That's why it's so good. So your fetch lands work, your artifacts work, your treasure tokens that we'll get to, your creatures, everything pings. Judith, a similar card, right? Pumps your team. Now, of note, it's non-token creatures you control dies. Okay. Biteful Prankster is whenever another creature dies. So this is yours or your opponent's. And this only hits players or planeswalkers, whereas this is any target. Midnight Reaper, when your non-token creatures die, you get to draw a card. Liliana Standard Bearer, actually we'll just skip to Haruspex. Haruspex is the same, but you don't lose the life. Liliana Standard Bearer is then a one-time effect, so it's a one-time payoff. And then the really classic Zulaport Cutthroat and Blood Artist. Really what we're sacrificing in this deck are cards that gain us value in some way or come back in some way so that we can do it again. So I have 3 treasure cards. The Shambling Ghast I really like. Often what you'll find with this deck is you're using a lot of your mana per turn. Even though all your sacrifice outlets are free, you're just trying to, equip your Skull Clams. Draw some more cards, play some guys, attack, activate abilities. So often just make a treasure. That's why I'm also playing the Impulsive Pilferer. Makes a treasure. You do have Encore as well, which will let you sacrifice him and make a treasure as well. Now, the big treasure maker we have in our deck is Gadrick, the Crown Scourge. Flying, can attack unless you control 4 or more artifacts, which we do have the ability to, mostly through treasures. And then at the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each non-token creature that died this turn. The rest of these are all creatures that make other creatures. So you have something like Orzhov Enforcer. It's Death Touch 1/2, makes a spirit when it dies. Lazotep Reaver, when it enters, it makes a 1/1. Nested Shambler, if you've equipped the Grafted War Gear onto this guy, he gets really big, makes you a bunch of squirrels. Zombies, Annex, he cares about non-token creatures that you control dying, and then he makes 1/1s. If they're power 4 greater, he can make 2 of them. White, I did put in this category. I'm playing him because he's pretty aggressive. He's a 2-mana 3/2. And when he trades with some of your opponent's creatures, he makes 2/2 zombies. If they're just chump blocking with elves because they're low, you're going to be making zombies. But most of the time, he will die, kill somebody else, make a 2/2 zombie. And these two are kind of the recursive token generators. When Kari Zev attacks, you make Ragavan, and then you exile it at the end of combat. You can sacrifice it in response to that trigger, just like Jadar, the Ghoul Caller of Nephalia. At the end of the combat, you're going to be sacrificing that creature. You can either let it sacrifice for effect or sacrifice it to, say, your carrion feeder to grow it. And it's like a lot of those tricks that you get to learn while you're playing this deck. Damage based, we have 5 of those. The Perilous Mirror, 2 damage to any target. Jury Master of the Review. When you sacrifice a permanent, put a 1/1 counter on Jury. When Jury dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So if you're sacrificing tokens and everything else and saving this to last, you can get a really big shot out of Jury. You sacrifice 4 other things, well, you're doing 5 damage when you sacrifice the Jury. Footlight Fiend, just 1 damage for a 1/1. Fireblade Charger, another Grafted War Gear specialist. Pretty similar. Dreadhood Butcher, can grow out of control. Otherwise, it does 1 damage if you just play it and sack it. The other reason to play some creatures are these recursive ones, right? Scrapheap Scrounger, you can cast it, you can activate this ability from your graveyard, so you get around counter spells, to put it back onto the battlefield so you can sacrifice it again. Skycave Shade, landfall, play this from you may cast, this one you have to cast, from your graveyard. Gravecaller, as long as you have another zombie, get it from your graveyard. Every landfall, return it to play. Putrid Goblin and Butcher Ghoul, I put these in here. These are pretty good for the fact that they are non-token creatures that come back and then you could sacrifice again. So you get 2 sacrifice triggers off of these non-tokens, which can be very important. Okay. I want to get to some of the spells in the deck. So, Diabolic Intent, I'm playing. If I was playing points, probably this would just be Demonic Tutor. But Diabolic Intent is a pretty good replacement in the sense that we have so many tokens. It's kind of a sack outlet, but really it's just finding our best payoff, right? Probably Prowling Geistcatcher, because it has such potential in this deck, but also a Mayhem Devil, right? Really good card selection. And some of these card draw effects too that I like. That Village Rites, sacrifice any creature, draw 2 cards. Deadly Dispute, I've really liked. You can sacrifice an artifact or a creature, which means you got a treasure lying around, just sacrifice that, right? And then you draw 2 cards and create another treasure token. You can sack that treasure token to keep the sacrifice chain going. Animate Dead. There are some creatures I'll get to in a second that this works with. But just the ability to get your best payoff back is really important. So we do have some recursion in here. Call the Death Dweller as well for that purpose. You find your Mayhem Devil, your Judith, returns them back. Your Mayhem Devil or Judith with a Death Touch counter will be able to shoot anything down because the damage is coming from them as a source. Same reason we're playing Unearth and Reanimate. Just really good value spells to get back our 3 mana creatures or whatever. We have a couple of removal spells because Scavenging Ooze can be a problem. Fatal Push, Bone Shards, easy way to get rid of Planeswalkers. Culligan's Command, so we can return creatures, some flexibility. Mind Collapse is a newer card, Modern Horizons 2, that you can sacrifice a mountain if it's your turn, rather than pay the cost, and then you deal 5 damage to a creature or planeswalker. Arctic Pyre, can't use it for card selection. I think most often we're using it as removal. A Braid, probably we're using it to destroy artifacts because we don't have too many of those effects. And then I am playing Lightning Bolt. Hard to go wrong with this. Although there are a lot of other effects you can play. Like you can play Thuds, you can play Flings, all those types of effects. Heartfire, another good one, is 4 damage to any target. I just went with Lightning Bolt because I don't want to pay that extra cost. Hard to go wrong with Lightning Bolt, like I said. I have just some value creatures, things that shore up other matchups or provide something that our other creatures are giving us. Like, we don't always need to be on the sacrifice plan. Smuggler's Cobbler, Jadar can crew it, because Jadar is probably not attacking. And all of your 1/1 tokens can crew it, right? So it survives Wrath. Like, all those things are reasons why you want to play Smuggler's Cobbler, plus you draw a card, you discard. Grim Lavamancer, this is a way we're throwing so much cards in our graveyard. He's always going to have fuel, and it's just 2 damage to any target. Ragavan Nimble Pilferer, this guy, he's okay. I don't know. Maybe he has a spot in this deck. Oh yeah, he makes treasure tokens too that you can sacrifice. It's pretty good. Our mana cost is very low. Dark Confidant is just a good way to get some card advantage. Grim Wanderer is a new one as well from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. It has flash, and the drawback is you can only cast it if a creature has died this turn. Doesn't matter if it's yours or your opponent's. I'm sure you can find a way to make some creature of yours die, and then be able to cast this as a 5/3 to just swing in there. Bonecrusher Giant, we're mostly playing it for Stomp. A little bit of card advantage on the side when get to a later point in the game. Lurrus of the Dream Den. So many of your cards cost 2 or less. This really just lets you cast the best card in your graveyard every turn. Such as Kroxa. You can just cast Kroxa off of Lurrus if you want to. This is another good card to tutor for as a good way to end the game. Liliana, easy creature control, some kind of recursion for your best payoffs. And then Zombies. Chandra, Acolyte of Flame. The first ability I probably wouldn't use. The second ability is definitely one you're going to use. You make 2 creatures that give you sacrifice triggers. They have haste. If you haven't read this card, I'll read it to you quickly. You may cast target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard. If that card would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So you do have to pay the cost, but we have some pretty high effect instants and sorceries, and being able to cast them again in your non-blue deck, just giving flashback to your best instants and sorceries in your deck. Super good ability. Duretti, the Ingenious Iconoclast. He makes a 1/1 construct. You may sacrifice an artifact to destroy an artifact or a creature. We're playing him obviously because he just keeps making tokens, and then hey, we can get rid of some big blocker or something. He doesn't have to sacrifice the constructs. He can sacrifice treasures if you need to. And then I'm playing a single threaten effect, Claim the Firstborn. We have a lot of sack outlets. We have a lot of ways to take advantage of, stealing our opponent's creature, swinging, and then getting rid of their creature for good. So Claim the Firstborn, I think, is one of my favorite cards in this deck. And then being able to do it twice with a Chandra shouldn't be underrated. So that's my Pointless Aristocrats deck. The lands, nothing special. They're all just mana or fetch lands. No utility lands here. And I will be posting links for a list with points, which would be 2 Moxen and a Tutor. And then a list that is more budget. I'm doing this kind of just as an experiment. I'm curious what you guys think. I won't do it for every deck for sure. Really, my disclaimer is I would only ever post decks that I would play. So even though this deck has 0 points and the points are a really fun reason to play Highlander, I think this deck definitely would fit the bill of, hey, why would I not want to play points? Or why wouldn't I? In this deck, I think, yeah, you have so much redundancy. You're just trying to get to those threat levels. And I think it's really fun to say, hey, here's my list. I beat you. It's 0 points. Sorry. But I think, yeah, this deck, really, really fun to play. If you haven't tried an Aristocrats deck, I would probably start with this one. But there's a lot out there. There's Mardude, like I said, that's a very popular version. I think we're at a point where a Rakdos version is good enough. And that's why I built it. So thanks again for watching, guys. Hopefully you have a happy Halloween and you've enjoyed this aggressive Aristocrats deck. Thanks a lot. I'll see you later.